Hey there, and thanks for tuning in to yet another episode of NetCLIX and Chill. This is episode number 10, a milestone on its own. We haven't put out a video in a little more than a week now. Reason being is we are in Central Florida, for anybody who might not know, and Hurricane Irma is hitting later this week. So we've had a lot of time that we've been using to prepare for the storm, which is supposed to be real bad, and also overtime at work has been horrible preparing for the storm as well.
Yeah, Jim works in insurance and I work for the building department. So we have had to just chaotically scramble.
So we're trying to get this video out now. We don't know if we're going to be able to make another video next week. We're going to try because, this channel is also a priority to us, but, other things seem to be impending doom.
All that to say, we're here now. We got a video coming to you. So let's see what we can do.
Yeah. All right. So what's our first topic here on the podcast?
Well, let's talk about the fact that the Mighty Thor and the new rules have been out for a little over a week now. So we've had the dust settle a little bit, some interesting rules questions pop up. We've got some sleeper pieces from the Mighty Thor that I didn't expect to be good or I didn't even know about that I'm really happy with. And then a couple rules questions we've kind of figured out. And we're also going to talk about the new team abilities because we haven't yet. So yeah.
Yeah. And one thing before we start, anything having to do with the rules that we talk about today, it seems like the rules are going over pretty well generally, but of course what anybody would have expected is that older pieces that were published before the rules changes with wording that specifically does not have new meaning in the new rules is questionable. So specifically the golden rule that has now been issued as a part of the new rules, basically stating that any old figures that aren't covered thoroughly with the new rules set need to behave the way that they used to. That is loosely understood by most people.
It's worded loosely and there's two trains of thought. One is play the character basically like you're playing with the old rules. So if it did X, Y, and Z before, do it the same way. The other interpretation is play it with the most recent rules on them, and then any new powers and abilities will interact with the new wording, which for the most part, that makes sense, that's fine, no big deal. But we've had one pretty heated discussion between the two of us that we'll get to, and it's why we need kind of a concrete answer on how to play the golden rule, and I don't know if we'll get one, but either way it's interesting.
Yeah, but fortunately those arguments I think have been pretty secluded to individual piece conversations, so there's not a broad brush that needs to be stroked across the game saying that this, and this need to be dealt with because it's not dealt with in the new rules. It's really characters who have special powers that say this power specifically interacts with this power in this way in this situation. But now that the new rules have been defined and a lot of the wording for a lot of the major powers have changed, you're wondering how those may still hold up, especially whenever a lot of these characters are still modern. So whenever you've got people bringing these to competitive events, and there are a lot of sets that are pre-new rules that have special powers that don't necessarily coincide with those new rules, there's a lot of questions.
Yeah, and the one figure we're going to talk about specifically, it's already like a B to A list piece. It's very good, and if the interaction works rules as written, then it's completely busted. It's overpowered. I agree that it's overpowered. We're not going to argue that either way. It's just whether or not the rules allow it, and if they should, and then how should we apply the golden rule to it. And for casual versus competitive, it's completely different. For casual, absolutely don't play it that way, it's cheesy, but for competitive, you're looking for a new edge, a new way to overcome your opponent, and if it works and the rules say it works that way, absolutely bring it. But yeah. Before we talk too much about it without telling you what it is, do you want to talk about that first and just get it out of the way?
We could, but before we start, one thing that I do want to say is if anybody does come across a ruling that they're really confused about because of the new rules, I think that NECA does understand that this is a very sensitive time for everybody just because competitive play is going to have a lot of questions because the new rules have come out. You got a lot of special powers interacting with those new rules, but they've actually made themselves available to answer any questions that you have.
Yeah, I'd say, sorry to cut you off, but I've been watching the WizKids Info Network very closely, and they're posting 2 to 3 answers a day almost. The most recent ones being a couple of cleanup wordings on Pulse Wave, on vehicles interaction. The Pulse Wave one with Better Ray Bill was pretty interesting, I guess. So just little clarifications like that, but they're pumping them out quickly. So they do hear us. Obviously, we got that errata, 3, 4, 5 days after they released the new rule book, we got an errata because they're listening, they're paying attention, and they're doing a very good job of trying to get all our questions answered.
Yeah, it's a very popular game they're dealing with, Heroclix, and then they also have this giant rules overhaul, and you can actually submit any questions that you have detailing the specifics of it to WizKids directly, and they're answering it in how many days, did they say?
They said you can expect an emailed response in 3 to 4 days, and it should be posted on the forum, I'd say within a week.
And basically once they make an answer, that is the answer until an official errata comes out, and that will list all the answers that they've given. That way you also have a central hub where you can get those answers for things that you may not have even considered as a question.
Yeah, and the question, because I posed the question we're going to talk about today, I wrote it directly to him. It's got a lot more steps and it's a little more complicated, so I'm thinking that's going to take more like a week or 2 weeks, because they're going to not just want to answer it rules as written, they're going to want to make sure it doesn't have a negative impact on the game. So I'm expecting that one to take a little bit longer.
And this is a specific character, so let's go ahead and talk about it now, because we've had enough lead up. So this is talking about the Shiva Shredder. It is a Chase, I believe.
Yeah, it's Chase from the Mighty Thor set, or not Mighty Thor, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Most of the letters were the same. But it was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Set 3 Shredder's Return Shiva Shredder. The power in question is Multi-Arm Menace. And basically it says that Shiva may make 4 attacks with a locked damage value of 2. What the Fray says is the character may use Blades, Claws, Fangs.
And the Fray specifically is an equipment piece that is attached to Baldur, and that is from the new Mighty Thor set.
So basically, what you do, or what the proposed issue is you attach the Fray to Shiva Shredder. He activates his power, locks his damage value at 2. Does he get to use Blades, Claws, Fangs to replace his damage dealt, or does Blades, Claws, Fangs replace the damage value, or is it somewhere in the middle? The way that Blades, Claws, Fangs is worded now is when this character hits and would deal normal damage during a close action, you may roll a d6. If you do, deal damage, keyword there, deal damage equal to the result instead of normal damage. And that's another keyword, instead of normal damage. Minimum result is this character's printed damage value. Now the way that locked values in the most recent rules were worded is this character's damage value, or the value of this character, cannot be replaced or modified. So old Blades, Claws, Fangs straight up said, roll a d6, replace damage value, this value is now locked. Because they took the term locked out of the game, new Blades, Claws, Fangs had to be rewritten. So it kind of comes down to, are you replacing damage dealt, or does deal damage mean something different, and is that added into the calculation? Because locked value, it goes on to talk about your value can't be replaced even throughout doing calculation for your damage calculation. So where does the line stop, and where does Blades, Claws, Fangs fit into that? Now the interpretation that I was arguing for, and I'm not going to go through every single detail of why it's right now, but basically the way it looks to me is Shiva declares that he's going to use Multi-Arm Menace. He locks his damage value at 2. You roll to hit. If you hit, you calculate damage dealt, or you calculate the damage you would deal. Normal damage, that's what it's called. You calculate normal damage. Okay, it's 2 because you have a locked value. Now you would deal normal damage. That's when Blades, Claws, Fangs triggers. When you would deal normal damage, instead roll a d6. You roll it, whatever your result is. With the Fray, your minimum damage value is your printed damage value, which is 4 on Shiva Shredder. So now you would deal minimum 4 damage, 5 or 6 if you roll it on the die. So my interpretation is you check for normal damage from the locked value, and then you roll Blades, Claws, Fangs, and then you click the enemy character that value minus whatever damage reducer they have. Now that is, rules is written, I don't want to, I already went through this discussion a little bit, but I have rules that back up every single part of that statement. But Jimmy, do you want to kind of explain your side of it, the intent and all that?
Yeah, so basically I think the only difference really comes down to your interpretation of the golden rule. And that's what we were saying before, is that the golden rule can cause some issues in particular cases based on what you think would apply based on the old rules and how you think they need to interact with the newest rule sets. So as Daniel was stating before, we had a long argument about this before and basically walked through every step, and rules as written, if you consider the most recent version of the term locked value, which is referenced in Shiva Shredder's White Power, would allow you to be able to use Fray and replace the locked value. It wouldn't be the locked value, but the locked damage dealt to a character whenever using Shiva Shredder's 4 attack ability. So instead of doing 2 damage every time, you do minimum of 4. That's a minimum of 16 damage that you do if you hit every attack. And then,
assuming no like invincible or impervious or super central. If you're hitting a naked character, you're dealing 16 damage. That KOs any standard character in the game.
Yeah.
It's pretty strong, obviously. I mean, Doc Ock does pretty much, he does close, he does I think 12 damage if every attack hits. But just the Shredder team is already incredibly strong. Adding this on top, Jakeem doesn't even stand a chance in my opinion.
Yeah, but this character is 90 points. And Fray, the object that you would attach to get this to happen, I think is 10 points. So you're investing a total of 100 points to be able to unload damage to kill any real meta potential character that you see right now by the amount of damage that Shiva Shredder would pump out in this scenario. The people who are on the argument for being able to do this kind of damage are saying that the golden rule states that you use the most recent wording of locked value. So you would apply that to Shiva Shredder's White Power of locked values, and then you look at the new Blades, Claws, Fangs. Locked value says that you can't replace the damage value. New Blades, Claws, Fangs says that you replace the damage dealt, which based on the new turn layout comes after damage value is replaced. So that means that locked values don't matter to Blades, Claws, Fangs anymore. And that's the real question. Because you have a locked damage of 2, but then after that damage is calculated as normal damage, Blades, Claws, Fangs says when normal damage is calculated, after that you say, never mind, sweep that aside, I'm going to roll this d6 and that is now going to be damage dealt as a new calculation on its own. That means that you're able to do all of the Blades, Claws, Fangs steps after locked values basically are finished and fade from existence.
You basically resolve the calculation and that ends locked values, and then you pick up with the next step, which is Blades, Claws, Fangs now.
Right.
Before, Blades, Claws, Fangs happened during damage calculation. And so basically the other side of the coin is it says play X how you did before. Well, before, Shiva Shredder was 2 damage, was 2 damage, was 2 damage, the end. So do you play it character like it's in the old rule set? When it comes to questions like this, obviously super strength hypersonic, you don't do that. But when you have an old power that, or an old term that no longer exists, do you apply that term with the rules all in a group from beforehand, or do you use all the old stuff that hasn't been updated and then add in all the updates? It's kind of an interesting situation, I guess.
The basic question is, does the golden rule apply to using the definition of locked value as it was in its most current state and relate that directly to the newest version of Blades, Claws, Fangs? Or do you accept the understanding that locked values and Blades, Claws, Fangs used to not interact with each other? So originally Blades, Claws, Fangs says that it wouldn't activate if you were using a replacement damage value. And locked said specifically that it was a replacement damage value. So before, locked values and Blades, Claws, Fangs did not work together. Now that the new wording has come out and locked value is not accounted for because it's no longer part of the game, people are arguing whether the golden rule says just use the definition for locked value with new Blades Claws Fangs, or you use the golden rule to say locked values did not interact with Blades Claws Fangs, so you still don't do it now, regardless of Blades Claws Fangs' new wording.
Yeah, and another, I don't know if it's really relevant, but kind of side effect, depending on where you're looking at, you can get incapacitate and lock damage values to kind of get weird too. And that's more of a stretch, because incapacitate now states instead of normal damage, you give them an action token. Well, depending on how the wording works, if you want to say locked value, the damage value can't be replaced, can you incapacitate and still deal normal damage? Can you put the action token? It just kind of muddies the water more than it should once you start getting into the implications of however this is ruled. But obviously the big one is, do I get 4 attacks, minimum damage 4, which is amazing, or do we play it how the figure was played before, which was 4 attacks apiece, 2 damage, end of story. And another kind of reason why this is relevant now is we just got these new items that grant Blades Claws Fangs, where before there was no way I know of to give Shiva Shredder Blades Claws Fangs anyway, so you could say play it how you did before. Well, before I couldn't give him Blades Claws Fangs, so whatever.
Yeah.
So it's kind of just, I don't know. It's muddy. Rules is written, and if you're going to a competitive event, be prepared to see Shiva Shredder with the fray, dealing 4 damage minimum per hit. Casual, if someone brings that, smack him across the face, throw Shiva Shredder, or don't, just pocket it because it's a chase. But just smack them and tell them that they're terrible people for trying to do that in a casual setting.
But we can go ahead and finish this specific conversation by saying, over these past 2 weeks since these new rules have come out, there really haven't been that many cases where it feels like the rules are unbalanced. They really, I think, have done a good job with their new rules. There are certain outliers that just don't abide by the golden rule very well. They just need specific rulings, which is why they're doing erratas. This specific case has been submitted to WizKids. It is pending some type of approval or an errata of its own, so this will be dealt with as well by WizKids, and then we'll have a solid answer. Right now, though, it's just an example of what you might run into. Fortunately, though, after a few rotations, the standard is not going to have these problems anymore. Every character that comes out, we've already seen, has different wording that coincides better with the new rules, and I think that once that is the entire atmosphere of standard, it's going to be a much better game, because it's going to be in line with these very understandable and easy rules, and I think that that's really good for the health of the game on a competitive level, as well as potentially a casual level, just because people who are just getting into the game are going to be less overwhelmed by the very easy ruling and understanding of the rules that have just come out. And I feel like we're going on a tangent, but just want to say, for appreciation for the realms, we use a lot of their resources in our videos for Dials information, and for any forums, that's where it comes from. But any other game I've gotten into, it feels like they need a resource like the Realms. HCRealms.com is specifically what we're talking about for new players.
Hopefully, literally everyone who plays Heroclix knows about this website already, because it is the best resource for any game.
It is a singular resource that you can go to for literally anything. Rules questions, new set release dates.
Literally every single figure that has ever been released, up through Hammer of Thor and the what was the death set called? The horror,
Undead.
The Undead set. Like, as those figures, like, I'm opening a booster and they're uploading what I pulled as I'm pulling it. Like, they have cameras in these boosters, I swear.
Yeah, but you deal with something like Warhammer or Infinity even, you're not necessarily going to get that information as quickly unless it's from several different third-party resources. HC Realms for Heroclix is a necessity.
Yeah.
But as far as, I probably don't need to say this, but house rulings are definitely a good way to mitigate the disconnect between a game company and its players. Because you've got people who specifically are showing frustration with certain characters that have been released that haven't necessarily been play tested properly. House rulings can really get rid of those characters in order to limit the amount of frustration of your local players, and also introduce new players into a friendlier environment that isn't saturated with crazy resources and crazy characters, or even rulings that shouldn't really be a part of the game. And I think that that can be illustrated through things like judge rulings and stuff like that, even on HC Realms. that basically say this might be how rules are as written, but this isn't how it's going to be played at my event for the health of the game.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good thing.
And real fast, hypersonic speed. I think it was our last podcast. I had mentioned the question of, do you have to break away when you hypersonic and you go base to base with someone, you attack, and then you take another move minus the space you just moved? The answer to that is you do not have to break away. You do get improved movement, ignores and moves through characters. I didn't just see that when I was reading through it before. I just looking at it again and happened to see that, and I was facepalm moment. So if you're hypersonic speed, you go base to base, you're good, keep running. You can run through them if you want, whatever you feel like doing. So hypersonic hasn't been overly nerfed, but it's weaker than it was before.
You can't carry people, you can't use super strength to maximize your damage output.
But you can use super strength for knockback, and you automatically break away. So.
Well, you don't. You have to break away the first time.
You have to break away the first time, correct? Sorry.
Once you break away, everything that hypersonic does is then available to you. But you have to break away at the beginning.
Yeah.
You just get a +2 to your breakaway roll.
Yeah, which is still pretty good.
You don't break away on a 1 in a normal circumstance.
Yeah.
So it's pretty, way above average. Unless, you're fighting the Wrecking Crew and roll a 1 when you're playing the title character Thor.
Yep. At least I got that one on tape, because historically Jimmy has really bad luck.
Horrible luck.
And he's never believed me when I say, like, my dice go cold too, ever. And when it happens when we're playing, like, he just happens to not see it or forget about it or whatever.
I'm just going to have a camera on every video now so Dan has bad luck so he can complain about it.
That's fine, I'll still win.
And then I'll feel good.
Because I did win that game. Spoiler alert. I did.
Well, hardly a spoiler because it was the last video that was put out about Heroclix. Yeah. But one thing I wanted to say about that is we are going to be putting out more gameplay videos. I've said that before, but especially since, that wasn't even... I would say the video quality on that video was horrible. The matchup was pretty bad. We still have more videos than some of our other podcasts. So, more watches, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that has a lot more views than some of our podcasts.
Yeah, so
I guess it's well received.
People are interested.
And we will do a lot better. Well, mostly Jimmy, because he's the tech guy. I just talk. So Jimmy will do a lot better at getting the lighting. I'll probably try to pick up one of the rollout mats, the soft mousepad material one, so we don't have the same reflection of light. And hopefully we can improve the quality and make it more enjoyable to watch.
Yeah.
But because of that game and a couple other things, I did want to talk about, you pick one figure that has surprised you from the Mighty Thor, if any. So one that we didn't talk about before, it might have been spoiled, might not have, but it just completely flew under the radar until it suddenly just like smacked you in the face. This is a lot better than I realized.
I don't really know that... Okay. Specifically, I'll say one because we pulled it in the last one. Surtur. And anybody who watched our unboxing video saw how displeased I was to pull Surtur. Only when we pulled him, did I realize that he had the monster keyword, which one is always a bonus in my book. And also, his abilities really aren't that bad. And after pulling him, we actually pulled him and Mangog. We decided that of the two, Mangog was the one that we wanted to get rid of. And before opening that set, Groot and Mangog were the two that I was interested in pulling. So, Surtur, I would say, was a surprise. I haven't gotten the chance to play him yet. We're going to be playing him pretty soon in a monster theme team at either 150 or 350 points based on the total point count. But I like him a lot more than I thought I would as far as playability and everything. He definitely has a certain role, especially as a Colossal who is primarily ranged, who, he falls into kind of a close combat dip, but he is, it looks like, more prepared to do a ranged energy explosion type attack. And it seems weird to put so many points into a character like that, especially since he can be shot from anywhere in the map. Usually you're going to try to just get in there and punch him in the face with a lot of damage, since they can see him anyway. Being like a ranged tent pole isn't really going to be great for you, but I'm definitely a lot more interested in playing him than I was before.
Yeah. I actually have two figures that really surprised me. One is the common Loki 002. He's just really cool. I really like the way that he's built and set up. He I mean, I didn't really do a whole lot in the game we played because I didn't have any extra clones. I didn't have enough clones to really be playing him properly. I've since changed that. I have 8 Loki now that are 002.
Just like eBay that crap?
Oh yeah, it was $1 a piece. I was like, are you kidding me? Those things are going to be $5 a pop as soon as people realize how good it is. But basically, every time any of the Lokis roll shape change, you get another Loki. Like, what the heck? I've got to read the exact wording. I don't know yet, but it might work with the mirror from Enchantress. I don't know if it says shape change when he uses it and succeeds. If it's worded that way, you're using shape change that succeeds on a 3 through 6. When you use it and succeed, okay, I used a shape change. It's not the same shape change. I might be able to pull some shenanigan 3 through 6, pop another Loki out. I don't know yet. Jimmy's probably looking that up.
Well, specifically just because it sounds like a minor case of wording.
Yeah,
so I'm just going to go ahead and look it up real quick.
There's Loki's card.
Oh, okay, great.
I might actually have Enchantress. No, I left Enchantress's card on my gaming table.
Let's specifically look at his shape change. Shape change. When Loki uses it and succeeds, after your resolutions, you may generate within range and line of fire another 002 Loki on the click number 1 that appears after the orange KO. Which means he has the 2 clicks. If anybody's not familiar with his dial, he has 2 different
starting lines.
Right, and one of them is after the first KO click, which is his primary starting line, and then he goes to a green starting line. Well, both of them are green, but it has a KO click that is blue.
The KO at the end is a different color, so you can differentiate. The reason they didn't do a different starting line is because the starting line is visible. It would give away which Loki is which. I'm pretty excited to try that combination out if it works that way, which I
yeah. The Mirror of Missalith is the one that we're speaking of, and that comes with, who is it?
Enchantress.
Okay, and it says specifically effect. Shape change that exceeds on a 3 through 6. If a 1 or 2 is the result, KO this object. So, you know, if you roll a 1 or 2, the object's gone. But any other time you roll a 3 through 6 on shape change, then it succeeds. And if those 2 powers were to work together, you would have 1 or more if you could play multiple objects of the same. Because you just put that on all 3.
Each object's unique.
Okay, so yeah, you'd be able to put it on 1. And then in that case, if you rolled a 3 through 6, you'd be producing more Lokis more consistently.
Now, if he does fail it, you get KO'd, the mirror would be KO'd as well. But if they have Battle Fury and you get KO'd...
Well, he wouldn't get KO'd immediately.
Well, if you take 2 clicks.
Right, but he also has shape change, or he has shape change plus he has super senses.
True.
So it's a hard dude to get across.
Yeah.
Especially not knowing if he's the right one. I'd say the best goal here is to try to catch him in a cluster and use Pulse Wave.
Or Energy Explosion.
Yeah, because well, Pulse Wave would just ignore the powers altogether.
Yeah, but
so he wouldn't have the chance. Yeah, but...
And to evaporate them, the best way to do it is to deal 2 clicks.
You have to do 2 damage.
And if you guess the right one and deal 2 damage, you hit a stop click. So, like, you're still not getting through them.
But that stop click then erases all the other ones, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
So, but that stop click, you're also 3 damage outwit, 10 attack with Psychic Blast, Sidestep, and Invulnerability.
He's real hard to tack down for 65 points. I would definitely say he's a lot better than I thought he was in that first game. And you paid the points for 2,
but you
didn't have them available.
Yeah, I only had 1 available.
So you weren't even able to use it to its full potential.
Yeah. The only limitation you really have is how many Loki you can put on the sideline, because you get 3 sideline elements per 100 points. So if you're playing a 300-point game, you have
9 available.
Well, minus your Eclipso, minus your Supreme Intelligence.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can still have 6 on your sideline or an ID cards. They're the call-ins for your ID card. So it can limit it. That's why I picked up 6 more, so I have 8 total. I figure 5 is a nice amount to have on the sideline, so you can still have other sideline elements. But if I get 5 extra Loki, that puts me at a total of 8. All of them have Incapacitate. You can just rotate who's incapacitating and lock a team down forever.
And Incapacitate is really a good power that I think is underestimated a lot of the time.
Because it deals unavoidable damage.
Yeah.
That's pretty great.
And especially in this era where it's all about the Alpha Strike, being able to incapacitate your Alpha Strike opponent is basically just winning the game. Because if you could just keep that up, especially when you have 5 of these guys running around, able to tack down 2 or 3 attacks every turn.
Well, even if you just do 2 onto their primary attacker, okay, they're tokened out, then you have your primary attacker attack, okay. Then all they can do is clear that attacker. It goes to you. 2 other Lokis double incapacitate. You still have an action, attack with someone else. And if you have leadership, you can have 2 other actions. I mean, you can get a lot of action control very easily with this team.
Yeah. What were we wanting to channel into next? Because I actually have a topic that I wanted to talk about regarding the rules. We should have talked about it in the beginning. It was specifically, the question came up in one of our previous, actually the game that we were playing of the Wrecking Crew versus the Asgardians. Somebody had put in the comments that the new Giant Reach no longer worked with the new Quake, as per the new Powers and Abilities card that came out on the 21st of August.
Yes, this one right here.
Yep, yeah, it's available. Okay, so
yes.
It looks like there's some confusion here because per the rules as written, it looks like they do still interact. And I'm not sure if people are thrown off by the way that Quake used to be written in conjunction with the new Giant. But if you look at the new Quake and the new Giant Reach, they do work together, and we'll show why.
Yeah. The thing with the old Giant Reach is it straight up said, if you had Giant Reach 2, count characters 2 spaces away as adjacent.
Right.
They changed it so line of fire matters because you don't want someone in stealth. Well, how can you see me if you can't shoot me, but you can punch me? So they changed Giant Reach to bring line of sight into account. So that would be a good one to read first if I can find it. It's on the back.
It's all movement abilities.
That's all. Okay.
I think it's in the next one.
Yeah.
Yep.
Here it is. Okay. So, Giant Reach. When this character makes a close attack, instead of choosing an adjacent character, or characters if able, for targets, you may use improved targeting, hindering terrain, and target characters within X squares in line of fire.
So you could actually shoot people in stealth.
Yeah, well, you can punch them in stealth, but if there's a character in the way,
right.
or a piece of blocking terrain in the way, something like that.
Right.
Now, Quake says close, knockback, make a close attack targeting all adjacent opposing characters. If more than one character is targeted, each hit character is dealt 2 damage instead of normal damage. So the confusion here is this says, make a close attack targeting all adjacent opposing characters. So the confusion is, it says all adjacent opposing characters. The way that this is addressed in Giant Reach, if I can find it again, Giant Reach says, when this character makes a close attack, so go back to Quake, and it says,
You're bad at navigating this card here.
Make a close attack. So when you make a close attack with Giant Reach...
So that's met with Quake and Giant Reach.
Quake then goes on to say, targeting all adjacent opposing characters. You go back to Giant Reach, which I found this time, and it says, instead of choosing an adjacent character or characters, specifically referencing Quake where it says all adjacent opposing characters, this says, instead of targeting adjacent, you target all within X spaces.
And line of fire.
And line of fire. So it says, when this character makes a close attack, check. Instead of choosing an adjacent character or characters, we're targeting with this instead. For targets, you may use improved targeting, hindering, like we said, and target characters within X squares in line of fire. So another way to think about this would be improved targeting. Basically, improved targeting, it states that instead of your normal function of being blocked by whatever, improved targeting lets you target ignoring that. So it functions the same way. Instead of your normal attack targeting an adjacent character, now you may instead target all characters within X spaces. So it's directly addressing your adjacency issue that comes into question. Now, in the game that Jimmy and I were playing, specifically, he wanted to use Quake with a Colossal Reach, or Giant Reach 3. I had a character that was behind another character. Now, because the character was in the way, he did not have line of sight. Normally, characters wouldn't block line of sight if you're Giant or Colossal using Giant Reach 2 or Giant Reach 3. But because he was a standard size character, he couldn't see over another standard size character to hit me. So he didn't have line of sight. But if that character wasn't blocking line of fire, he would have been able to hit me.
Right. So, for the purpose of that game, it was a little bit of confusion with how the old Quake worked with the new Giant Reach. But after looking through it, after that comment was said, we are able to still attack things with Quake that are within your Giant Reach capacity, you just have to also have line of fire instead of it just hitting everybody within that 3 range. So we're actually specifically talking about, normal Giant Reach has a range of 2, but we're just talking about the Thunderball from the Mighty Thor set, who also has the Enchanted Ball and Chain. He has a Giant Reach of 3 as a normal trait on Thunderball, and then the Enchanted Ball and Chain says that if you use Quake, then it automatically does your printed damage value instead of the replacement damage value of 2, even if he hits multiple characters. So in this situation, I had rolled and hit a character who was 3 spaces away, and there were 2 enemy characters in between him and that character who was hit. You wouldn't be able to do that now because he's a standard size character, Thunderball is. So he couldn't see over those 2 characters. But if that character had clear line of fire 3 spaces away, since he has Giant Reach 3, he could still hit him with Quake as well as any other opposing characters within line of fire in 3 spaces.
So that's a little bit of clarification there. We do appreciate the comments, though. It helps us to make sure we're playing right, and if we're not, then obviously we can correct it, and if we are, or if we miss something, we can explain it like we're doing now. And we did play part of that wrong, but part of it correct as well.
Yeah.
So, and that, again, that's important, so that way I play competitively, I go to tournaments, I want to make sure I'm not cheating or being cheated. So
Yeah.
comprehensive knowledge of the rules is very important.
And then one other thing that came up in another comment that was a little later was that since I was playing Brainiac and he was playing Eclipso, and that was for the Asgardian and Wrecking Crew theme teams respectively, that they were no longer theme teams because those characters were a part of the team, but they were both being used as equipment from the very start of the game. If a character does not start the game on the map, but they are a part of the sideline, and in this case are a piece of equipment attached to a character, your keywords don't come into consideration.
Yeah.
For the starting force, they are not actually considered a part of your starting force, which is the only thing that keywords for a theme team purpose care about. So
yeah, you basically check characters, non-bystander characters, set up on the map at the beginning of the game. You check, make sure you have all the keywords. If you do, theme team. Or I think it's even right before you set up the characters, but it's your starting force.
Right.
Your sideline has no bearing on it. Otherwise, shifting focus pieces like shifting focus Deadpool, you could literally never do a theme team because they don't all share all the same keywords.
Right, and this is kind of a two-edged sword too, because they're like, oh, well, you can include this character and you can get a theme team when you wouldn't normally. But also, if you're trying to do like a robot theme team or something like that, and you've got a Brainiac in there, that Brainiac also isn't going to contribute for your number of characters for the roll-off in the beginning, for getting a bonus for each character who's a part of the team.
And it doesn't add prob controls to your prob control pool if you're using a named keyword.
Right. The equipped characters for entity purposes or for any sideline purpose have literally no bearing on your theme team capabilities. It doesn't detract from your ability to make a theme team, and it doesn't add to your abilities or your benefits from creating a theme team. What's next on here?
Well, I did have one other character that surprised me. I wanted to just throw out there, honorable mention, was Thor Odinson, the title character. I was totally all about the Loki title character. I didn't even care about this Thor. I was like, he's 175 points. He's overcost. He's not that great. Man, was I wrong. This dude, one thing I noticed too, a cool thing, is they, on his, actually every single stat is a mirror. So his first click and last click are the same. His second click and second to last click, same, stat-wise. Powers are different. Basically, his dial works in a bowl, and at its weakest, he has a 9 speed running shot, a 10 attack precision strike, 17 defense and vulnerability, and 3 damage. At his weakest. And both bookends are way stronger than that. For 175 points, he has 4 damage potential minimum on all but 2 clicks, and the entire dial, if he's making a ranged attack and you +1, he can, if he hits, make another ranged attack. So he's very, very good. I don't know if he's quite top tier meta yet, but he is a very solid piece that I like a lot more than I thought I would.
And you mean yet because he's still going to be standard after the current meta moves out, such as Jakeem Thunder.
Yeah.
The character, he has so much move and attack capability. He starts with hypersonic speed, then gets to running shot, and then he has charge at the end of his dial with super strength. And his attack value never dips below a 10 and is most of the time a 12 or an 11 with a 4 damage. So even without any type of modification, his damage output is nuts. he is a title character, and his +1 is better than most other +1s that I've seen on title characters.
But
probably the best that I've seen.
He's also twice the points of any other title character. I don't know if it's better than Doctor Strange's, because being able to just give out free 1 damage to yourself or any adjacent character is really good for an 80-point piece that has Psychic Blast and Prog Control.
True, I guess, for
Like-
an 80-point piece. But
Doctor Strange is outstanding.
He does +1. And I'm
I know.
not saying that, I'm not discrediting this Doctor Strange, but this guy for +1 to +1 is basically a means to an end in most cases. This guy, it is a staple, because if he is able to land a ranged combat attack that turn,
With a 12 attack,
he then gets to make another ranged combat attack, and you've got a damage of 4 base, and it
Perplex.
doesn't care about modifiers. So,
but wait, before you continue, the Red Leader Prime, real fast, he hits rule of 3 with his Perplex immediately. That was another one that was just ruled on the his info network, little sidebar. He rules of 3s any 1 stat. You throw it on Thor's damage. Pick it up.
He's got a 7, and then there's no damage depletion modifier anymore. So he hits for 7, and then he shoots again for 7 with a 12 attack. He's 175 points. That's a freaking bargain. You're going to be dealing 14 damage, not counting damage reducers.
Only catch is you can't target the same character with the second attack. So it doesn't let you just one-shot anyone, but dealing 7 damage to 2 separate characters is ridiculous.
Yeah, and it's
and
his power that specifically says that. It says that after resolutions, once per turn, he may make a ranged combat attack targeting a different opposing character after hitting that first close ranged combat attack.
Now, the thing to note here is the second attack is just a ranged combat attack. It's not a ranged action, so you do not get Psychic Blast if you had it on him from, say, Brainiac or Eclipse. Or Brainiac. Eclipse doesn't have Psychic Blast to start. So you can't Psychic Blast with the second attack, but if you had it, you could with the first. So you could Psychic Blast, hit their heavy hitter, and then turn around and make a ranged attack if you somehow Precision Strike to, I don't know, the resources are getting out of hand. But if you could do both of those, then you could Precision Strike with the second attack against someone with Super Senses for the -1, hit them for 7 damage. That knocks out like any support piece. Like Al Jordan has literally 5 clicks. Even if he takes any damage reducer, you hit him for 7 damage and he doesn't evade it or reduce it to 0, he's KO'd. Like, when you start realizing the KO potential from this dude, like, you hit their tent pole, and then if you do hit, you get the extra bonus of sniping out a support piece.
Yeah, every time we've talked about this guy, we've focused on his +1. Let's quickly go over his -1 as well as his final power, his -8. So his -1 is Restore the Lost Asgardians. He has a free action, place adjacent another friendly character with the Asgardian keyword from anywhere. If you do, heal both Thor Odinson and that character 1 click. That can be useful,
for all the stop clicks in this freaking set.
But theme teams for a competitive level, especially whenever he's 175 points and your goal is going to be to have supporting characters, you're going to be very limited if you're sticking to only Asgardian characters. So I wouldn't count on that -1 being especially useful.
Unless you're using the 65-point Loki with his stop click.
Right.
You get hit to your stop click.
He's also really good.
Call him over. Okay, I've got to stop click again.
Yeah. He's really good, but he's not necessarily a support piece.
Yeah, he just
We'd
kind of
have
does
to
his own
test
thing.
it. Yeah, he'd be like a secondary attacker, and then you wouldn't really have that many points left over in your standard 300-point game. But his -8, God of Thunder, is pretty great as well if you can manage to get him that far. He has a free action for the rest of the game as long as Thor Odinson is on the map. When an opposing character would get an action token, it gets 2 action tokens instead. That is nuts.
With the Loki, with all his clones, it's got Incapacitate, now 1 Incap, 2 tokens. Like, there's a lot of potential with those 2 pieces together.
When it gets an action token, it would get 2 instead. You can lock down the whole team and just beat them to death.
Yeah. And now, two more things to note. He starts with 3 plot points to start, so he has to get the power off +1 5 times without using any minuses. Because title character abilities, if you use it and do not attack, you take 1 unavoidable damage.
So you can't just do it willy-nilly.
You can fast track and do it in 5 turns. You'll take at least 1 to 2 clicks of damage because you have to clear. But his power complements his playstyle the most. If you use the +1, you're going to attack, because if you attack and hit, you get to attack again. Now if you miss, okay, I still don't take damage for the plot point, no big deal. I'm using hypersonic speed, so I can get to the very edge of my range, attack. If I hit, great. If not, I can retreat back, stay relatively safe, and I'm farming that +1. And if you have any type of incapacitate, I think there's a couple weapons that came out that put tokens on them. There's different ways of putting tokens on figures. We were talking about that with your Frankenstein monster. So there's a lot of ways to put tokens on characters, and this just makes it infinitely better.
Yeah. But if you ever do see this guy, try your best to focus him down. Because in most games you're going to have 300 points as far as being like competitive standard if you end up seeing this guy in the meta. Usually you're playing at 300 points modern, and he is 175. So taking him out would take out over half your opponent's team. But this will never be an easy job, because he starts with a 19 defense with Invincible. He ends with a 19 defense with Impervious. He never gets to a point where he doesn't have a move and attack power. He doesn't have this power where he can make 2 ranged combat attacks per turn. Or
and
he
always
has a ridiculous damage output.
Always has a damage reducer and has super strength for 6 of his 8 clicks, precision strike for 2 of them.
And flight and indomitable, so it's hard to try to maneuver around him. So he is going to...
Basically...
If the person that you are fighting against has any strategic capability at all, it's going to be really hard to move around this guy with any other standard piece in the game.
Yeah, you'll really have to kind of rely on the second strike, which means you have to survive him hitting you first. You have to have an outwit ready to get rid of the invincible so you can hit him hard. He has 8 clicks. Most competitive meta pieces have a damage threshold cap of 7 without a critical hit. So you almost cannot one-shot kill him, which if you don't, it puts him back onto a 19 defense, and he's got his own built-in healing. You can have a character with support like the Chase Valkyrie, and then call her over, you both heal a click, and then she uses support and heals you up again. You have to be able to handle him and take him out, or he will continue to play well. When Jimmy and I played in our game, I got knocked him out like second to last click.
He was still
and Thor didn't care. He picks up a heavy object and punches you in the face. He's got charge late dial, so when you're in the thick of the brawl, he actually wants to take damage so he can come in with the heavy objects and just beat the crap out of you.
Yeah.
Like, it's pretty ridiculous. He's a solid freaking piece. I really like him.
Another reason to try to just kill him as quickly as you can is because he's a total character, he also has the slight setback of when he is KO'd, friendly characters can't move or attack during your next turn. So being able to actually manage that alpha strike or that kill will lock down his team for a turn. That is not going to give you a great advantage, especially if you kill him on an off turn where the other characters on his team have to clear anyway. But as we said before, he's 175 points. He's going to be over half of the 300 point modern point cost. So you're only going to deal with, most likely, his supporters and at worst a secondary attacker. Like, you know, the common Loki if they're wanting to keep that theme.
Which I think could be pretty good, especially get that with the ultimate power off. Alright, so that is us just raving about this Thor. That's 5, 6, 7 pieces at least that we've talked about and just like, holy crap, this is a good piece. But it's not, this is just broken and meta breaking, it has a really good chance to compete. I like it, it has a very good, solid feel. And I feel like this set, again, we've said it before, was just built and designed incredibly well. There's a lot of good strength, but it's balanced strength.
Yeah, it kind of makes me wonder if a new design team has come into NECA, because with the new rules coming out, having reviewed them, I thought it was weird they came out with a pretty full errata pretty quickly after, but the rules themselves are real good. This set that just came out, I feel like, is one of the best sets that's come out. Elseworlds and What If were right before it, and I feel like they were... I loved the theme. I didn't love what was produced. This, I don't really like the theme because I don't really care for Asgardians, but I think it was done very well.
And another thing I have to say too is I feel like there's almost no sculpt reuse except on the Colossals, which is fine, whatever, that's a lot of plastic. But I didn't just open a pack and see 4 of the same sculpt. I will also say it's been hugely ignored, but the Undead release coming at the same time was kind of a bad decision because it was overshadowed by Mighty Thor, but that set was actually really good too.
I like that set.
You had, they purposely gave us 2 figures with the same sculpt, but that makes sense because it's your zombie leader, your skeleton leader, whatever. So they gave us duplicate sculpts, but they function well. They function well together. They are written with the new rules. Everything I feel is costed out well, but there's nothing just broken out of it. That Frankenstein chase, he's a very good, very playable piece. It's very rewarding to have him and pull him as your chase, but he's not going to be a must-have meta breaker. But you could bring him to a semi-competitive tournament if you have a strategy in mind and it's built well. He could do incredibly well. So I feel overall that set, it was a very quiet release that was done incredibly well, and I hope we get more like it.
It's like the return of Heroclix, which I always thought was neat.
Yeah, I always thought it was cool running around with Hellboy. And
that thing died like a long ago, though. Most people who play the game now probably wouldn't have it known that it existed, but...
Yeah, but Heroclix was a thing, it was neat.
Yeah.
Alright, but before we ramble too much, we do want to talk about the new team abilities real fast. We've done 2 podcasts about the rules and didn't even touch the new team abilities. We're not going to go over all of them. We're not even going to go over very many of them. We're just going to touch on a couple that were very relevant very quickly. So first off, the Mystics team ability got a nerf. It's no longer copyable by wild cards, and it's no longer unavoidable damage. It's penetrating damage. So Invincible is better because of that as a side effect. Dormammu, the 35-point Colossal Retaliation, got worse because now you're not copying Mystics, which is totally reasonable. But
yeah. Honestly, it made it to where that was one of the best ones to take because there was no reason to have any consistency on your team. You just had some wild cards, so you're like, oh, what am I going to do? I'm just going to throw a very cheap Mystics character because Mystics is so good when just taking it, and you don't really have to do what other dynamics have to do and keep characters adjacent who have the same type of keywords or same types of abilities. You, like, 2 Defenders characters need to be next to each other, while a Mystics character can literally just steal something from somebody across the board.
So they fixed that, which is good. And they also, I like the change because it makes you think a little bit more. If I've got a leftover outwit, do I outwit your Psychic Blast and just take whatever damage you're going to deal? Or do I outwit your Invincible so you're afraid to hit my Mystic and take that damage that you normally wouldn't take? So it kind of, it creates more depth to the game just because of a small change to a team ability. So that's really good. Another one that is good for the health of the game is Defenders. I think Defend itself, JSA, all the similar type powers got a small update that has very big impact. They are all worded now to state that you may replace your defense value with the printed defense value of an adjacent character. For JSA that shares JSA, Defender shares Defenders. For Defend, the power, don't have to share anything. You just replace with the printed defense value. The reason that matters is I can't have my 20-point or my 20 defense Green Lantern with the JSA theme team or the team ability. I can't give that 20 defense out to a line of my entire team. I can give it out to one piece. I can give it out to all of the pieces, but they all have to be adjacent to him, making me more vulnerable to energy explosion. Before you could have your one guy with 20 defense up front, chain them all out. At best, they'll hit 3 characters if you're running a 5 or 6 figure team. Now, if you want to share that 20 defense, you got to bunch up. So it just forces positioning to be more important on both sides, and how important is sharing that value versus staying spread out so you don't get hit with a quake or an energy explosion. So that was another just kind of health of the game change that I really liked.
Yeah. I really like the Injustice League team ability now, and I know that it's kind of finicky on its own. So how Injustice League used to work is if you had multiple people with the Injustice League ability on your team, if one person hit somebody and then another person with the Injustice League ability then hit someone, then the second person would get a benefit of, I believe, -1 defense on the target because they were already hit by an Injustice League person once before. So it would progressively get easier for these Injustice League characters to hit them, and of course it would be blocked by the rule of 3. So once you hit 4 people, it's eliminated, and if you have only one person, then it's literally useless because there's no one else there to benefit from it. And if you've got one main attacker, it also doesn't really help you out because you have no other character who wants to benefit from it on a regular basis. The new Injustice League ability basically says that if you attack someone, and you roll a 10 through a 12. After the attack is done, you take an action token off the character who attacked. So It is very inconsistent because you have to roll that 10 through 12, but it gives you a benefit, especially if you're running only one character with the Injustice League ability. There are a lot of situations where you have somebody who, you're running a theme team and only one of them happened to have the Injustice League ability. Where it would have been useless before, now you at least have some form of benefit just because they have that ability, and I think that's great.
And it also couples well with a couple of new items that came out where if you roll a 10 through 12 or 9 through 12, you end with hit, now you deal a critical hit. So
you give them an action token. I think there's the knobbed mace, and then there's just the mace, or hammer, or something.
There's a couple different weapons that have similar effects.
Yeah.
But either way, you can start to stack these effects, so when you do roll that 10 through 12, suddenly you're getting a ton of good stuff happening all at once. You can even put Scarlet Witch and put that little object on you to give you the 10 through 12 as a critical hit. Now you're taking an action token off and you're putting an action token on them. So like suddenly, if your dice are hot, it's real hot.
Yeah. But of course it has to be with that character specifically too. So it's never something you can count on, but it's a little bit of flavor and it's good. I think that it's a cool power to have been able to be changed. The other thing is both the Avengers and the Justice League of America, which have always been the same, the abilities now state instead of a movement action not counting toward your action total, where originally if you had 5 characters and you only had 400-point games, so you have 4 characters that could take actions, then all 5 could move because their movement actions didn't count. Now it just says that if a character with that ability takes a movement action, they get +1 to their movement. So if you have a 10 movement, now you have an 11 movement for that movement action.
Yep. And that goes right back to that 50-point starter set Hulk. He has the Avengers team ability, so now he can leap climb 1 space farther and then quake full damage.
Yeah, and I ran into this a lot anyway. I really like this change just because it seems like they wanted to make the team abilities more consistently relevant, because I had a lot of situations where I had a Justice League team, it was 500 points, it had 4 characters, 500 points, it had 5 characters. The power literally had no impact on the game. I was playing a Justice League ability just because I wanted to make a theme team. But now it makes it to where it's consistently relevant. It can work into your strategy. This character, it now has more movement if you are wanting to use that consistently, instead of it being like, oh, this game, it literally has no impact, but this game where it's more points and I have more characters, that has more impact. I don't know.
So it's cool, and I'd have to check. I don't know if any of the figures like Ghost Rider have the Avengers team ability, but the figures that can move their full speed value and attack people who they moved over, characters like that who have powers where you move and attack, it seems pretty good.
Yeah, but it has to be part of a move action. So
yeah.
It'll be specifically like those double base characters like Ghost Rider and Valkyrie and Black Knight, if they have those types of powers. I know Valkyrie and Black Knight have the Defender's ability. But bonus is, if you move, you get +1.
Yeah. Alright, let's see. Oh, one thing real fast. A public service announcement from your local try-hard and trader. Do not trade your chases without the objects and vice versa. If you pull a chase and he comes with an object, keep them together. I'm seeing sites online selling objects separate from the chases. That's the dumbest thing you can do, because it's just like if I traded Iceman without his FX piece, or if you trade Doctor Strange or Felix Faust without their D20, or any of the Deadpool chases without the comic panels. Like, what's the point? You're taking away a big part of how that piece plays. What's Thor without Mjolnir, Like, it just, don't do it. And it completely devalues both, because I'm seeing the websites are selling the weapons for like $20 and they're trying to sell the chase for $50. I don't care about that chase without the weapon. I'll give you $5 for it, maybe. Like,
I think it's one way or the other, though, because I think that you could probably get away with selling an object without the character.
True.
Because the object is a lot more versatile.
Yeah,
so
the object functions without the character how it would with the character. It functions the same.
Everybody wants Frey, but nobody wants Baldur.
Yeah.
Like,
but everyone wants Better Ray Bill with his object. Better Ray Bill without his object is very okay because now he's got a 4 range. His special power is based on 4
his
spaces.
object makes him have that 6, which is good.
So without his object, if he's attacking you, you can attack him the following turn.
Yeah.
With his object, he can stay on the fringe. You can't target him, and he can target you.
I think there are certain characters.
Huge difference. And on the chases, it's just there's just not enough in the market for it to make sense.
Yeah.
You're going to have everyone's trying to scramble to get these weapons. You're going to have these leftover chases. You're going to have a better rate bill without weapon for $10, with weapon $90. What the heck?
Yeah.
So
I think that's definitely true of the higher end characters. I think that characters like Executioner, everybody wants that Blood Axe because the Blood Axe is nuts. Executioner is nuts.
He's an uncommon. And yeah, this is more for chases and super rares. Rares, I still would, because they're just uncommon enough to be annoying, especially in an 8 booster brick. And it's a full, like, What If had 50 pieces. This one has, 68 plus weapons, plus chases, or plus weapons, plus colossal, all that. So you got more figures, less boosters per brick to pull these same figures, so that the supply is all messed up. It's harder to pull a specific piece you want, and once you start separating pieces from their weapons, it gets chaotic quickly. Yeah. So on your chases and super rares, if it were me, and I'm planning on doing, I pulled 2 chases. I actually pulled a Malekith out of 2 boosters. It was pretty great. But I'm keeping chases and weapons together. End of story. So that's your friendly public service announcement from us. And I think the last thing we have to talk about is our preview for our Theme Team Thursday. Now, whether we'll be able to do it by this Thursday, we got a Category 5 hurricane that wants to come.
Well, I mean, today was Thursday.
Well, yeah. I'm talking about, like, in 7 days.
Yeah, in a week.
Yeah. So, hopefully we can get a game in the next week. But we got Irma, her boyfriend Jose, and even another hurricane all hanging around
There's
Florida.
like Katia or something like that over in the Gulf now.
They're just all like staring at Florida. Apparently we did something wrong. Florida man has gotten out of control, and the powers that be are just smiting Florida off the map. If we survive, though, we'll have a Theme Team Thursday for
That's
you.
right.
We're going to play 600 points.
It's going to be Weather Wizard versus Storm. Not really.
No. No.
That would be pretty great, though.
That would be pretty great.
During a hurricane.
Except Storm would have to be Irma, and Weather Wizard would be Jose. Because we know, like, the strength of these characters.
It's true.
But what we are doing is I am playing 600 points of Defenders. Jimmy is playing 600 points.
Justice League International, representing.
Yeah.
Led by Booster Gold.
I'm really excited. I've got 5 figures on my team I have yet to play that I have picked up each one individually because I wanted to play it, and I haven't yet. So it just happens that they all have the Defenders keyword.
When did you get Goliath?
I pulled Goliath in that Civil War sealed that I won.
Goliath is a real good figure from that Civil War set.
So,
he's a super rare, and he's absolutely fantastic.
He's the one figure I have played. He's probably the weakest link on this team.
Which is upsetting, because he's great.
That's
I love
a pretty good weak link to have.
He's like one of my best favorite characters, I'd say.
Your best good friend.
He's my best good favorite character.
Alright, so I am playing Rare 036 Captain America from What If, because Thor just came out and he's got Thor's hammer. It made sense. I thought it was cool. He has traded Energy Shield Deflection and Range Combat Expert with a 4 damage top valve. He's pretty good. And he does not have a team ability, so he's running around doing his own thing. Of course, Goliath, he's cool. He's 90 points, Civil War, super rare, 029. He has Invincible, 18 defense, Defender's team ability, Charge, Super Strength, Giant symbol, and Empower. Empower's not huge for this team, but it's nice to have. I'm playing the convention exclusive 150 point Doctor Strange. He's got the Mystics team ability. I've never played him. I don't know how overwhelming he may or may not be. For 150 points, he only has 3 damage, so he's not really a primary attacker, but he does have the D20, so I can roll and make things happen. It's not Felix Faust's D20. He can't lock your opponent down, but he can hand out buffs. So he's decent. I like him. It's Doctor Strange, who's always cool. Psychic Blast, Prob Control. So we're going to give him a try, see how it goes. I also have the 051 Super Rare Iceman. He's probably the most meta piece on the team. I wouldn't call him meta anymore, but he has been in the past. He's pretty cool. He's got X-Men and Defenders team ability. The X-Men team ability won't come into play this game, but Defenders with an 18 defense, which actually I think all my Defenders team ability except for Valkyrie have an 18 defense, so I won't really share it until someone starts taking damage. I also have the super rare Black Knight and Valkyrie Defenders pieces, 066 and 065 from Avengers Defenders War. They both have the drive-by power. Valkyrie's is Blaze Claw's Fangs, which since Blaze just got a buff, I was really excited to try her. Black Knight, you can choose to deal penetrating damage. So again, it's pretty nice. It's 2 penetrating or 3 normal, so he can deal 1 damage to your invincible characters, or he can deal 2 damage to your impervious and invulnerable characters. So he's very versatile. I'm excited to play him. And that team comes out to exactly 600 points on the nose. It doesn't quite have as much support as I like. I've got 1 prob control besides the theme team, no perplex, 1 empower. So everyone kind of functions by themselves and works alone. But we'll see what happens.
And my team is made up of the Superman, Wonder Woman, Prime, Captain Atom for 130 points.
Was he the one you did the Filthy with a Chance review? We have a review on that figure. Jimmy did. Check it out. It's pretty cool. I don't know if you can tag that at the end of the video or if you even want to.
Yeah, I can.
But it's a good review. I didn't care about this figure at all until I watched Jimmy's review and I was like, oh, he's actually pretty decent.
He's a really good range combat Psychic Blaster in the beginning. He moves into close combat with super strength, and then at the end of his dial, he basically explodes to deal penetrating damage to all surrounding characters, including your own if you're too close, because his nuclear suit rips open. But I really like him. I was really happy to pull him.
And since I'm playing Defenders, he can get up close and potentially pop for hitting 3 or 4 of my characters.
But you can't really rely on that power. I think it's regeneration, and if you roll a 1 or 2 on regeneration, he blows up and deals 3 damage to all surrounding characters. Something like that. Mm-hmm. But it's not something that you could strategize around. It's really some bonus damage if you manage to be in the right position.
Yeah.
And I actually bought an entire brick of Superman and Wonder Woman just hoping to pull that character, and I think I pulled him in the 2nd booster of that set, so I was super happy. And then Guy Gardner from Streets of Gotham, he's the one with the... it's like a rocket launcher construct, which I think looks awesome on his sculpt. His main output is in close combat in the beginning. Of course, he has an 8 range, but he has Flurry and Charge in the beginning. I believe he also has Quake at some point. And then Batman...
What?
The Batman set.
Okay.
Booster Gold.
I was real confused there.
Batman is not on the team, but from the Batman set, just called Batman. Booster Gold, the super rare, number 52. This is a character that I play all the time. I love him so much. For anybody who doesn't know, Booster Gold is my favorite superhero.
His real name is Elon Musk.
What?
Yeah. If you look into Elon Musk, he's like this weird nerdy guy that popped out of nowhere, has all kind of future technology. He's brilliant. He's multimillionaire now. He's like successful Booster Gold.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure he knows how to travel through time. He just hasn't told us yet.
Probably. But... you know, Booster Gold's real name in the comic books is Michael John Carter, and Libya and I, you know, my wife, are naming our first son Michael John Carter Prescott after Booster Gold.
That's actually pretty cool.
It's already been determined.
Yeah.
And then Lobo from the Superman set, number 42. He's a really good character. He's rated 5 stars on the HC Realms. He's primarily close combat attack as well. Most of these guys are primarily close combat attack. And then, well, what's great about Booster Gold, though, is his leadership was never useful before because he's only 98 points, and every other character you'd put on Justice League International, probably about 70% of them would be higher than 98 points because a lot of them are pretty big, heavy hitters. But he would never be able to use his leadership. You're just like, oh, well, I guess I might get the +1 this turn, +1 action this turn if I roll a 5 or a 6. Now, since they're all sharing a theme team, he can actually take action tokens, and he always gets the +1.
Even though you don't need the +1 with 5.
Not for this one.
Well, if I roll the Doctor Strange power, I can reduce your action total, but only if I take more actions than I have, so never mind. Yeah. I got 6 figures, we got 6 actions. I'm not going to be able to use
I've got 5 figures on this team for 600 points. So that Lobo at 169 points, and then the last one is the Streets of Gotham Blue Beetle. He's only on this team because he fits 61 points. You know, Booster Gold and Blue Beetle are best friends, so it's great and thematic. But of all Blue Beetles that I would like to take, this one is the least. The great part about him is he has charge. He also has perplex, so he's kind of like a secondary attacker and support piece at the same time. But the reason you would usually play this 61-point Beetle, again he's Streets of Gotham number 6, is because he has a trait, the Beetle's Bug, which increases all of the bugs, which is the vehicle, the bug, increases all of its combat values by +1 when he's flying it, which is nuts, because that thing is already fantastic. But, of course, this team does not have the bug on it, so it's just the Beetle running around.
Is the bug?
139. 139 points because it comes out to exactly 200 if the Blue Beetle is piloting it. That's why.
Well,
139, and that is piloted. I think it's 99 points if it's not piloted.
Cool. Can you drop anyone and put that thing on there?
I could, but I don't like to play the Beetle just because I know that it makes people butt hurt. I really like this team.
I'm playing a D20 con exclusive, even though it's a crappy
true.
one. It's the crappiest
But
of them
I
all.
was really proud that I've been playing Justice League International for a real long time because ever since the 2012 run of Booster Gold leading the Justice League International, I have been playing that theme team because Booster Gold is fantastic. So I'm so glad that I hit exactly 600 points with 5 characters, and 4 of these are my favorite Justice League International characters.
And for the new players, the reason it's a big deal is figures didn't used to always have round numbers. You'd have characters that were 41 points, 52 points. It was very hard to get an even, exact, solid number.
Yeah, everything's 60 points, 90 points, 65. Like it's all around now.
Everything now. I don't even think we have 5s. I think literally almost everything.
175 right here, right?
He's 150. We got 75.
This guy's 175.
No, that's Thor. You're right.
Right. Thor.
I thought you picked up Doctor Strange. Okay, so you'll get 75, 175. Most of the values are they're all divisible by 5. Most of them divisible by 10.
It's like puzzle pieces now. It used to be just literally random. It was based on a points calculation based on the stats and the powers that you had available on which clicks.
Yeah. So the game has changed a lot even in the way things are costed, but coming out to 600 points exactly, when you've got a character who's like 152, a character who's 61,
yeah.
Like you get these weird numbers. When it finally works out and you don't go over, it's pretty cool.
And you don't have to fill any points with feats either.
Yeah.
So that's pretty great.
So, anything else? We've talked for over an hour, so. It's been a little over a week since we did our last podcast, so we had a lot to talk about. We rambled a little bit, hopefully not too much, but hopefully we got a lot of good content out for you guys to ponder and talk to us about and leave comments, let us know how you feel.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't normally do it, but I will definitely say you should subscribe. One random person keeps disliking our videos. I'm really curious about that. So if you don't like something, let us know. Tell us about it. If you're just doing that to troll, it's super funny. I kind of appreciate that.
Just keep disliking, and it'll be like it's like a game of battleships. Just change things gradually until we figure it out.
But that's funny. I like that.
Yeah.
We'll get 2 dislikes. Oh, we went too far.
Go back. Yeah.
But we do appreciate the feedback. Obviously, we have fun doing this, but we want to do this so that there's good content for people to come, new players to learn, experienced players to get a different viewpoint, and veteran players to judge us and laugh at us.
Yeah.
So give us some feedback. If you comment, that's a huge help. Subscribing is also great because that lets us know that people are interested and they want to see more, not just, okay, we watched this one video. So it's just a little encouragement to keep us moving forward.
And we are trying to make a lot of changes too. As you've seen, we've gotten some equipment to actually make the lighting not yellow and horrible. There's not any light outside right now. It's 10 o'clock at night, and we still, I would say, have better lighting than we used to have because we have some actual LED light equipment here now.
Which you brought them up and I just stared at them, so thank you for the blindness.
Super bright. So we're trying to make changes to make sure that it's appealing for everybody. We really like to do this, but we also want to make sure that everybody enjoys watching. and we've been seeing more comments in the videos as we progress, more likes, more views, and also more subscribers. We just passed 100 last week. We're now at 105 as of recording this video.
And we were, what, the 5th or 6th podcast? We were trying to push for 40 subscribers.
Something like that.
It wasn't that long ago.
It's grown a lot, yeah.
We had the benchmark was getting to 40, and Jimmy wanted to do a 40 viewer video. By the time he was able to do the video, we were already at 80 subscribers. So that was really exciting and pretty great.
Yeah.
And now we broke the 100 people milestone.
We're just glad to see that so many people are interested.
Yeah.
And we're going to try to do as much coverage as we can of special events. We're going to be going to events. We're going to be playing games and then doing podcasts like this from now on as well. We're also going to be doing coverage of PAX Unplugged, which WizKids will be present at, and we'll be doing a vlog of that as well.
And this guy is going to buy me all kinds of con exclusives because...
Going to be getting things like this from the convention itself. Which this is the, what is this called again?
That's Supreme Intelligence.
Supreme Intelligence, super meta cool piece, I guess.
Yeah, and you're going to have to win some because the Bat Knight and Carnage, Spider Carnage.
Spider Carnage I'll go for. I don't really care for Bat Knight.
I've got 2 Bat Knight now, and it's not enough.
Is it? Is it not?
They're 60 points apiece. I need 10.
So or
5.
I'll go with I like Thor Odinson. I'll go with a Thor Odinson team. We got to figure out something real meta
We'll build
for that.
an Asgardian theme team because I know our theme
Good
teams.
words.
Thank you. It's 10 o'clock on a Thursday night when we've both been working like crazy.
Yeah.
I just like Shatnered through how I was talking to. I was gonna talk about meta stuff, but we'll do that later. I gotta build you a super meta team.
We're going to be doing, I keep saying this every time.
One day, like 4 or 5 podcasts from now, we will release a Meta Monday.
Meta Monday and Theme Team Thursday. The last one was a theme team, but it wasn't on a Thursday because...
and it wasn't even like Theme Team Thursday style. It was more a, hey, let's see...
what we can do. It was a trial video to see if people are interested in gameplay videos, and it looks like people really are.
It was a good faith video because we've been talking about it. We wanted you to see that we're actually going to freaking do it.
Right. This week, just because of the hurricane, and also probably next week, are just going to be tough. We haven't been able to get together to be able to do those games yet, and tonight we were debating whether to do another podcast or to play a game for that purpose, but since it's been a while since we've done a podcast and we had a lot of information to talk about, we figured we'd just run with this. We will be putting some gameplay videos up soon. Yeah. One other thing for you guys to look out for is we've got some games that have been produced specifically by us, and we're going to have, there's a game called Toy Box Takedown, a game called Focused Fire, and then a new game that is currently in development, which I will then release a little later once it's a little more thought out. And we will also have gameplay videos of those.
You skipped 2 others that probably won't come back, but I was actually working on designing a card game.
Called Pardaxia.
And we were working on...
tabletop game?
Yeah, what was the other... What was
just
the name
Phalanx.
Phalanx, the tabletop game.
That was the game that we actually started with. That was years ago. I made models for it because I do modeling with like figurines and stuff. Yeah. Not very great. But you know.
It was interesting. Obviously, we love gaming. We play games. We like making games. Just things to do. So
we'll show you that too. Maybe there would be a chance you'd be interested. I actually did a failed Kickstarter about 3 years ago with Focused Fire, which is a game about like vehicles that are attacking each other on some other planet, and that was a flop.
Yeah, and another one too is the Pardaxia, the card game. You hadn't really started any of the programming or computer design or anything yet at that point, and it's just card games are too expensive to get started.
It's expensive because of all the art. If you're not able to do it independently, you have about 120 pieces of art that you have to have per set, and you're at least 3 sets per year. The overhead cost on that is ridiculous for somebody who's not established in the game production industry.
But you can release an open beta before you have the art and have all the card text and the way that cards work, and if you can do that online, your only overhead is time.
Yeah. So
that goes from being an incredibly tough goal to an incredibly just time-consuming one.
Yeah, true. So. Alright, well, I guess that's it then. Thank you very much for watching this episode of NetCLIX and Chill, episode 10, which is super cool. that we've even gotten this far.
Yeah, that means we've sat and talked about Heroclix for about 10 hours. We had the one short episode. So I'd say we've had a good 10 hours of content that we have thrown at your face through the internet, and you've listened to it.
That's right.
And that is pretty awesome. That's cool to think about. I mean, if people can put up with listening to us for this long, like, I'm impressed.
We're going places.
Yeah.
I think we have the potential to be the biggest Heroclix channel
We
on
could get
YouTube.
like 110 subscribers.
That's right. We only have
Biggest
5 more to
channel
go.
ever.
Well, thank you very much again for watching.
Yep, if you made it this far, you're awesome. If not, I'm going to throw you into Hurricane Irma. Not really. That's a terrible thing to joke about. I'm about to like lose a house because of it.
Home ownership is not good really, right? My God.
Yeah.
It's not good right now.
It was a great decision until this happened.
Which was, a great decision about 8 months ago. We're not going to have a roof by the time this is over.
I will, but I won't have any windows because I've got a hip roof, so like I'm a little bit safer than you.
A hip roof?
Hipped roof. It's the trust system's different. You work insurance. You don't need to know this.
Okay.
Actually, you do because it affects the.
It could
affects
affect
the policy.
things. Yeah, whatever.
You should know this. What's wrong with you?
Car insurance. We work with car insurance.
A hip roof on a car.
Yeah, have comprehensive car insurance. That's your takeaway from this whole episode.
And be nice to your inspectors. We're not trying to screw you. We want to make sure you don't die. Mostly.
That's right.
Some people, if you're annoying, maybe, but.
Well, okay.
Once
this is
again,
it. The last thank you. Thank you very much for watching. Have a great day, and goodbye.
See ya.